my name is Promise Nkono, and I am a first year product design major and a student facilitator for Dragon Network, Drexel's official online professional development community for students and alumni. I'm so excited to be joined by Devon Carney, a 2015 design and merchandising alum from Westfall. We are looking forward to learning more about her career path and journey since attending Drexel. Devon, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get right into it. So, tell us about your career story from Drexel to now. What did you envision yourself doing after graduation? Did you have it all planned out when you graduated, or was it something you developed along the way?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. I feel like as a student, everyone tells you, the career path is not linear. You can't really plan it. And that was very true in my case as well. I never wanted to live in New York. I've been here 9 years now. So yeah, in undergrad, I was like, I'll never go to New York. I want to be on the business side of things. So that's why I did design and merchandising. And I actually did a study abroad program where I did footwear design, just for fun. And that was at London College of Fashion through Drexel. Would highly recommend doing a study abroad program if you have the opportunity. And it kind of spun off from there. So I really leveraged that when graduating. And yeah, I've been on the creative side in New York for 9 years now. So I'm a footwear designer. And yeah, I mean, I owe that 100% to Drexel and, a lot to that study abroad program that I did, where I got a little bit of experience and I was really just able to run with that. So yeah, I did start my first role out of college. I actually started before I graduated. So I started in March and then graduation was in May, and I was commuting to New York 3 days a week. And then I had class the other 2 days. So just really ready to get into the workforce and, establish myself. And I was very type A, wanting to make sure I had a job when I graduated. And, that first job I got through one of the teachers. One of the teachers posted that a former student was looking to fill a role, and that's how I got that role. So, Dragon Network is very important. Networking with previous students, alumni is huge. I've gotten a lot of roles that way. So yeah, that's how I kind of broke into the workforce through my network. And I actually started in technical design. So I was in apparel initially for a couple years as a technical designer. And then I had done an internship while at Drexel as well at Michael Kors. So they kind of recruited me back into their ecosystem. And again, I was in apparel, and my old team, which was in footwear, pulled me back. So really emphasis on your network. It's smaller than you think, the industry, in terms of fashion. I've crossed over with so many people, and you feel like it's really big when you're entering it, but it's small. Everyone knows everyone. So, really making a good name for yourself off the bat and, networking with people you don't necessarily think will cross your path in the future has been huge for me. So yeah, now I work for Cole Haan as a footwear designer, and I've been here for 3 years now.
Hey, that's really inspiring. I think I agree with the point that it's who you know.
Yeah.
Like even as a freshman, I just came into Drexel and like all the seniors are telling me it's who you know, it's who you know. So it's interesting to see how that pattern has come up throughout the course of your career.
Mhm.
And even with footwear, was that something that you dipped your toe into in your degree, or it was just after?
So yeah, not at all. At Drexel, I didn't study footwear at all. I don't know that Drexel even has a footwear program necessarily, but yeah, I did the study abroad. And the option for that London study abroad was a reiteration of the design and merchandising program over there. I think it had a little bit of a different name, but similar concept, or design. And I was like, I want to do something different. I want to do something fun. And yeah, I just got really lucky that I even got into that program. It was highly competitive. You had to submit a portfolio. I'd never done a portfolio, so that was something new for me. And I really just I worked really hard and I got in and it was great. But that's really what catapulted that creative side for me. But it was by chance. And yeah, it's interesting how the career path goes for sure, for sure.
And you had a lot of help from your like professors, like with your application, study abroad.
Yeah. So we took a course called Presentation Techniques. And that was all about portfolio building. I know that things have definitely shifted in the more digital world, but in my day, that was a physical presentation. So we had boards and physically we're making our styles and cutting out paper and being very hands-on and tactile about the presentations we were making. And that definitely helped. Just kind of understanding how to tell a story when you're doing a portfolio was really important. And that was something I totally used when submitting the portfolio for that project. And every job I apply for, I have to submit a portfolio. So I definitely utilize the skills I learned at Drexel for sure.
So, where do you get your inspiration from being a designer?
Sure. Yeah. I personally am very into architecture. So I actually took some architecture courses at Drexel my senior year as free electives. So that was really fun because, I was the only senior and in a primarily freshman class, and I was like nerding out. So, I was getting A's on all the tests. I was asking all the questions. So that was really fun and funny. But yeah, I love to look at architecture for, hardware designs or a buckle or something that I can pull from historic buildings that have been around. And, in New York, there's a lot of really cool buildings, Empire State Building for one. I was fortunate enough to work in that building, so it was really cool to draw inspiration from it. Of course, there's runway shows that we're constantly looking at. But yeah, I really like to sort of meld current day fashion with historic features like architecture, like art. One of my collections, I pulled a painting, a Vincent van Gogh painting, and did the entire palette based off of that painting, which was really fun and, a fun way to express, just beautiful colors and something that's so well known, and just kind of revive that, and bring that back to life.
Great. And leading from this question, has there been any project that you've been inspired by that you're most proud to be to have had the opportunity to have worked on?
Yeah.
For your
Yeah. Um, so I mean, I guess I'll say the first time that I was excited about a product I worked on was definitely some of my first products, like seeing them in market, seeing people wearing things that I had designed was really rewarding. It's always exciting. You're like, I designed that. So that's really special to see that in market. I did have the opportunity to partner with a foundation that worked on shoes for people with disabilities. So that was really amazing. Just understanding, what different people go through and, people who may have different struggles than others are not always considered. So it was really great to be able to kind of think differently and, think outside of what we normally think to help people who are differently abled. And that was really special to be a part of.
Mhm. And in the projects that you've been excited about, what was your design process like in whatever project comes to mind?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the process generally starts with inspiration. So, as I mentioned, looking at architecture, we look at jewelry, we look at runway shows, what's in market now, what are our competitors doing. So, a lot of times we'll go out and shop the product. So, if you're working for, Tory Burch and your competitor and maybe is Michael Kors, I don't know, but just kind of seeing who's playing in your market and going to their stores, seeing what their customers look like, what their customers are buying. that's always been an exciting part for me, like the consumer side of things, just trying to, understand what they're thinking when they're making those purchasing decisions. Is it emotional? Is it functional? And then kind of crafting a design that can cater to our specific client, keeping the fact that this is what our competitors' clients are doing as well. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to steal your competitors' customers, right? And gain more market share. So that's always exciting to me. If we have data on the consumer, that's always really helpful as well. She's not buying sandals in February or XYZ. Just learning kind of how they're shopping our product has been really useful. And then we'll really go from there and build out a line to kind of understand where we want to hit specific styling, specific offerings. And then we go into the fun part, which is, the designing, the sketching, the material development, the colorations. So that's always the really creative, fun part, and the little bit messy part, which can be really fun, if you have everything like dispersed on a table and it just feels very creative and empowering. From there, we start sampling. So getting the physical product is one of the most exciting parts as well. Going from sketch to tangible shoe is always great. Sometimes things turn out really crazy. So learning to adapt quickly has been a learning experience, and something that's been very useful. But yeah, so getting those first prototypes, we go through rounds of protos until the final product, and then we present it out to the sales team and then basically start again. So yeah, I think overall it's a really thrilling experience, and it changes every season and there's always new challenges that come up. So that's really cool to be able to pivot and, learn from previous seasons to make the next seasons better.
Mhm. And how have you become like confident with learning how to be flexible with those different seasons, especially in all the different companies you've worked for? What would your advice be to someone that wants to be flexible and adaptive?
Yeah, I definitely think that you're sort of forced into flexibility, and it's always uncomfortable. But it does get more comfortable the more it happens. And every season we have to pivot on something, whether it's time frames, whether we can't get a specific price on something, we need to change a buckle, change a component of something. So it just kind of becomes part of the process. And I think my advice is to look at that as an exciting challenge and not a roadblock, right? So think about it as, a kind of a fun experiment, and just like what are all the creative ways that I can attack this problem. And one thing that's been beneficial is in terms of like teams. So like, of course, I'm on the design team, but we have partners, merchandising team, product development team. One of the best things I found is to kind of approach that problem together. So don't, oh, this team should be doing that, I should be doing this. It's one team at the end of the day. So approaching problems together, I think, is the best way to, solve them. And just try to do it with a little bit of excitement. So kind of like shifting your brain from challenge for it to be an exciting challenge versus being, a hard challenge that's, seems like you can't finish it. That's what I've done.
Okay. And you've mentioned that you did go back to school for an MBA. I'm curious to know what motivated you to pursue an MBA and how did you use that degree in your current role?
Absolutely. So yeah, as I mentioned, I started in the design and merchandising program. So that was definitely more of the business side of the industry. I always swore I'd be on the business side of the industry. And just got really like fortunate and had a career path towards the design side. So yeah, like being a designer, I really wanted to still be in touch with the business side. I think that designers who are informed about business decisions and what's going on in the market at a macro and micro level is just really important, and it affects your designs in a positive way for the company. So that's really why I wanted to go back. So yes, I finished my MBA. And it was amazing. I mean, I was really able to learn from people across different industries. You know, there was people in the food industry, the healthcare industry. So it was very cool to understand how similar businesses are. So despite being in fashion, there were so many parallels to the health industry, and issues that, you know, people face in similar ways, just kind of applying different principles. So it was really incredible to learn that. And I've definitely implemented it in that I partner very closely with the merchandising team now, more so than I did before. And I have a lot of value to add there, which has been great. So as I mentioned, I like the consumer insight side of it. So I've been able to work with data, which I wasn't able to do as strictly a designer. So that's been a huge bonus to the creative process for me. But yeah, I also think that one of the most important things is communication. So being able to communicate to business partners, from their verbiage, from their language, and just kind of cater your message to who you're presenting to has been something that my MBA really helped me with. You know, talking to designers, it's very creative, it's emotional. So really just kind of establishing that framework to be able to talk to different shareholders was huge.
And our last question would be, obviously now some people have graduated. Congratulations to them. And also current students left at Drexel. What piece of advice would you give to them to take with them?
Yes, definitely build your network. And I always felt, you know, I always had people say that to me, like network, network, network. And it feels intimidating. It was something that I didn't fully understand. Um, and just being on the other side of it now, I see the value. But networking can just be getting coffee, you know, with someone, an alumni. And I think make it less intimidating, right? So you don't need to ask for a job. Actually, do not ask for a job in your first networking meeting. You don't need to ask, you know, if they can send your resume to someone. It's really just making those connections because, as I mentioned, the industries are small. So, you know, in a year, in 2 years from now, you can reach back out to that person and just say, hey, like, you know, I'm applying for this job. Do you know any information about this company? Do you know anyone there? But yeah, grow your network, and it might feel awkward, it might feel uncomfortable, but just try. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with it. So, you know, it's okay if your first few networking meetings are a little awkward or strange. You're learning, right? You're learning and growing, and you'll figure it out. But yeah, I would emphasize growing your network because that's how I've gotten several of my roles. Yeah, and don't think of it as a big chore. Just think of it as, you know, another tool that you can have in your bank.
Hey, thank you so much for the advice and all the beautiful pieces of information you've given us today. Thank you so much for coming and attending our interview and all your inspiring responses. I know both alumni and students will appreciate them. We welcome everyone to join us next month for our next Power Lunch series interview, and I hope that you all continue to utilize Dragon Network to connect with one another. Thank you, Devon.
Thank you so much.